Chapter 13. Traps and Plans. The gentle chime of an arm clip rings out through the loft, momentarily drowning out the sound of the rain whipping against the expansive window front. A wide bed dominates the space, and silken sheets rustle as Raylan turns in his sleep. The persistent humming finally ends his restless night. Reaching for his arm clip on the nightstand, he finds an incoming call from the lobby. He clears his throat.
Yes. Who is it?
It's me, Taryn.
Her muffled voice sounds tense.
Let me in.
Raylan checks the video feed and spots Taryn standing at the street side entrance. He taps the display and responds.
It's open. Come on up.
He slides to the bed's corner and grabs his pants and sweater.
Close.
He commands the bed. Small robotic arms emerge at the side of the bedding. They draw the sheets below with a whirring noise, revealing black leather cushions underneath. A flowery scent wafts through the loft as the top sheets are dry cleaned in place. Raylan gets into his pants and addresses his loft AI.
Prepare 2 cups of tikra.
He checks his appearance in the bathroom mirror. Scraggy strands of hair cross his haggard cheeks. Hazy eyes stare back at him.
You look horrible.
He mumbles to himself. The burst of cold water in his face helps a little to focus his mind. A melodious doorbell chimes. Raylan quickly dries his face as he walks to the entrance. In the kitchen, the hissing noise of hot water blends with the aroma of sharp spices as the automatic tea brewer prepares the requested tikra tea.
Open.
He commands as he pulls on his sweater. The entrance slides open, and Taryn quickly steps inside.
Morning, baby.
She quietly greets him as she hangs up her wet coat. Raylan senses Taryn's exhaustion, which mirrors his own fatigue. With a gentle touch on his arm, she passes by and heads for the living room area. The entrance door slides shut as Raylan follows Taryn.
She does not look good.
He thinks alarmed.
What's up with her?
He fetches the teacups from the kitchen and joins Taryn, who sits upright on a couch, glancing up to Raylan with an uneasy expression on her face. He hands her the cup and smiles at her silently. The lively scent of tikra fills the loft, and both carefully drink a first sip of the hot tea. Both feel the heightened alertness and the energetic boost as the tikra alkaloids course through their veins. A gust of wind rustles along the window front.
So, what's the news from the council?
Raylan finally breaks the silence. Taryn sets down her cup and clasps her hands in front of her, holding her gaze on the cup. She quietly reports yesterday's meeting.
I told them about our suspicion.
Taryn tries to keep her wording, as she discussed with Surin earlier.
They said they'll look into it. And they gave us a new mission, a big one.
They'll look into it?
Raylan repeats her words in shock and searches Taryn's eyes for more information.
Nothing else?
He whispers in disbelief. He expected a shutdown or an in-depth analysis of all available data, but nothing?
So in other words, they don't care.
Raylan leans forward with a frown and clutches his cup.
Fine.
The council's orders make no sense to him. His frown deepens as he turns to Taryn again.
What about this big mission? Another industry compound?
Raylan's discontent is palpable. Taryn slowly drinks her tikra. Her heart starts to thump louder as she prepares to unfold the lie that the council had prepared.
The council sees the opportunity to hit Winslow Industries in its heart. The harbor headquarters.
Raylan laughs short and hard.
Never. Not in a million years. That thing is a fortress.
Taryn taps her display and activates the council's presentation. She touches Raylan's arm clip for a moment to transfer the files for the alleged attack.
Have a look for yourself,
she says, not daring to look at Raylan.
The foundational AI and server farms are all located underground.
She explains in a neutral voice.
They use immersion cooling to control chip temperature. Introducing a conductive chemical mix into the coolant liquid will lead to catastrophic system failure.
Raylan shakes his head. He acknowledges the plan's potential, but he also detects its drawbacks.
First of all, you can't just walk in there and access the cooling systems,
he says expertly.
Secondly, do you know how much you would need to add for a system that size?
Yes. The calculations say that a one-time addition of 60 liters of concentrate will suffice. It's on page 8 of the dossier.
Taryn has read and memorized the council files to give the plan its plausibility. Glancing at Raylan, she feels miserable for her betrayal. still hoping he would not fall for it.
We need to place some sort of container down there and fill it up over time.
Raylan screens the dossier and is already caught in technical details about the mission, glad to sidestep the bigger problems about moles and ineffective council orders.
Yes, we could do that.
Taryn replies slowly.
I'm so sorry, Ray.
She gets up and takes her cup with her to the window front. Leaning against the cold window, she tries to hide her emotions. Rain drops race down and sideward on the window surface, driven by chaotic gusts of wind. She gazes outside and watches the morning traffic below her, an endless band of vehicles, joining and leaving the main highway, each with its own destination.
The chemical mix is easy.
Raylan says.
We can buy enough to mix it right here.
He is ensnared by the idea of finally putting down his father. Winslow Sr. will not get back up after this hit.
We need inlays. That's it.
The idea hits Raylan out of the blue.
We'll make a suit with, say, 20-liter inlays. I could introduce random security checks every 3 days. That's 3 trips.
Raylan gulps down the rest of his tea, his eyes darting back and forth.
Still about 2 weeks of preparation starting today.
He frowns at the prospect of waiting so long.
2 weeks?
Taryn thinks, stunned by the idea.
I can't keep this up for so long. Take him away already.
Taryn is close to surrendering the idea that all of this would end up well. She swallows hard to focus on the presence and her duty to the ecos.
But the reward will be high.
She lamely encourages Raylan. He approaches her with a wide grin and lays his arm around her. Taryn stiffens at his touch.
Oh yeah,
He gives Taryn a devilish grin.
it's like severing the head of the monster.
His voice sounds exhilarated as he hugs Taryn tightly. She pats his back and unwinds herself out of his hug. She ambles back to the couch, causing Raylan to frown shortly.
Everything okay, baby?
Yeah, I'm fine.
She replies and turns around to face Raylan.
Maybe I'm just tense because this is really big. I mean, phew.
She tries to ease his concerns with a forced smile. Nervously, she first puts her hand on her hips, then folds them in front of her. Raylan senses her nervousness and tries to cheer her up.
I have something that'll take your mind off things. How about a nice slice of desert worm fillet?
Taryn looks at him in surprise, but remains silent.
I've invited some good friends for dinner tonight.
Raylan explains innocently.
It's Aria, Kyron, and Evren. They're good people. You'll like them.
Taryn holds tightly onto her cup, savoring its fading warmth.
Sure.
She agrees and drinks the rest of her tea. The prospect of living a normal social life with Raylan for the next week seems impossible,
I'll tell Saren. She'd not want to miss it.
she adds, keeping up the facade. Raylan's warm smile feels like the ultimate puzzle, and she loses focus on what has been her fundamental truth. Raylan is a traitor. She feels the walls closing in. Her breath hastens,
I've got to get out of here.
fighting the panic that swells up inside her. She abruptly puts down the teacup and clears her throat.
How about I'll get going with the chemicals and you'll check for some inlays?
Taryn offers him an immediate plan of action as her escape route out of Raylan's presence.
Please let me go now.
She pleads inside.
Please?
Taryn's strength to keep up the tirade deteriorates fast.
Good idea.
Raylan says, but he also searches Taryn's eyes for clues in her demeanor. She seems strangely distant.
Maybe it's all a bit too much for her.
He thinks and tries to comfort her.
If we keep this low profile, the mole will never know.
He says,
And if we make it, the mole is no problem anymore. See, things are looking up.
Raylan's naive reassurance hits Taryn unexpectedly and leaves her staggering inside.
How can he act like this if he's the mole?
Doubt about the council's trap befalls her, and irrational hopes of Raylan's innocence fuel her inner turmoil.
I better get going, you know.
Taryn stutters and leans in for a short, stiff hug. She then turns around and briskly walks toward the entrance. Raylan is again taken aback by her aloof demeanor.
Yeah, sure.
He murmurs, unwilling to press Taryn on her curious behavior.
Take care, baby.
He waves at her as she leaves the loft. Standing in the living room, a feeling of loneliness befalls him. Again. Back on the street, Taryn exhales a sigh of relief. She spots Saren's dark red sedan further down the block and sprints toward the car through the rain. Saren opens the door at the last moment. letting Taryn slide into the passenger seat.
Frigging rain.
Taryn curses as she removes her wet coat. The weather forecast predicted sunny skies for today, but in the past years, weather anomalies like torrential rainfall tended to increase on Lasses.
How did it go?
Saren asks anxiously as Taryn settles in the passenger seat.
He bought it.
Taryn answers tersely, folding her arms. Saren senses Taryn's emotions better than anyone, and she tries to comfort her.
You did what you had to.
She says.
You've thrown your punch. Now let's see how he deals with it.
She states matter-of-factly. She steers the car into traffic and activates the auto drive.
Look, we still don't know for sure.
She says.
It could all be just a coincidence.
She reaches across the middle console for Taryn's arm. Taryn shakes her head as she gazes out onto the stream of vehicles.
The hypothesis with the fewest assumptions is usually the right one.
She replies, her voice distant. She is caught in her logic reasoning.
Fuck logic.
Saren snaps, jabbing a finger at Taryn.
It only works if you have all the facts, but you don't.
She leans into Taryn and fixes her eyes. Taryn senses that there is something else that has Saren so overly tense.
That's why hope exists, you know?
Exhaling in frustration, Saren asks,
How does hope fit into your theory?
Hypothesis.
Evren corrects Saren mechanically. They had discussions like these before, and Taryn always prioritized reason over sentiment, but Saren's defiance of logic is rooted in her expected social role as a Len. Dismissing logic is her way of challenging tradition.
Okay. We'll just have to wait it out, I guess.
Taryn replies wearily. She slumps back into her seat and watches the traffic pass by. Waiting is the last thing she wants. She only wants this nightmare to end. Then she recalls Raylan's dinner invitation.
Oh, Ray invites us for dinner tonight.
She mutters and adds,
2 triples and desert worm fillets. Evren and some of his friends are coming too.
The meat's supposed to be delicious.
Saren answers.
Sounds like a plan.
But then she recalls their present dilemma and her plan seems filled with unpredictable dangers. Blowing her cheeks, she murmurs,
I guess we'd better attend to keep up the charade of a normal life.
Distracted by Taryn's information, Saren nervously taps the steering wheel. She is still thinking about a way to clue Taryn in about the orders from the council.
Yeah, I don't want to be around when they,
Taryn's voice trails off.
Hey, stop that!
Saren grabs Taryn's arm harder than she wanted. Taryn twitches and stares at Saren bewildered.
You talk like he's already gone. Let's focus on what we can do now.
Saren lets go of Taryn's arm and opens her display. With a tense and shaky voice, she tells her,
While you were up in the Eagle's Nest, I've had a look at the Council's plan for our next mission.
She swipes through the pages and exhales deeply.
This is the big one.
Saren nods at the texts and graphics that are shown above her arm clip. Taryn breaks away from her gloomy thoughts and turns to face Saren. Her serious expression and the tone of Saren's voice alarm her. Warily, she asks,
How big?
Bigger than anything we've done before.
Saren replies in a low voice, barely audible over the constant hum of the engine. She has had some time to stomach the scale of the Council's plan and its irrationality. Taryn senses Saren's uncertainty and braces herself for whatever bigger means.
What is it?
We'll work in concert with the Northern Lasses and Dushama sections to
Saren's voice breaks, and she clears her throat.
attack a geothermal power plant down south.
Saren frantically tries to find reasons to postpone the inevitable.
A geothermal plant?
Taryn asks surprised.
We took out those before. We don't need the other sections.
She tells her. She is relieved to hear that a manageable task is at hand, yet something in Saren's voice makes her anxious.
The power plant is in the Asta Mountains, close to the coast.
Saren swipes up and down through the pages hectically. She rather wants Taryn to find out, to spare herself from telling.
It's at Trinity Outlet.
One more hint for Taryn to spell it out for herself.
Trinity Outlet? There's nothing at...
Taryn jolts upright as if stung.
No!
She shakes her head in disbelief.
Read it yourself.
Saren offers and touches Taryn's arm clip to transfer the decoded files. She is glad that Taryn found out by herself. Still, the facts remain the same.
They want us to attack gods on its ceremonial opening day?
The thought itself seems preposterous. Gods is the only chance to reduce global temperature. All of ECO's actions aim at reducing global temperature.
This makes no sense.
Confused and increasingly frustrated, Terran reads up on the details of the plan. Apparently, a well-placed explosive charge at a seismic pressure point would release a volcanic magma stream that would engulf the AI center that governs the God's system in the Verloren Strait.
I know.
Siren absent-mindedly chews on her fingernails. For her, the Council has always been a far-off mysterious entity without form. This is the first time that they issue direct orders, not just guidelines. Outside, the traffic flows smoothly onto the rain-beaten city freeway. They leave the central district and Siren's car takes the through lane toward Cassiton.
It's a test.
Terran clasps her hands feverishly as she tries to bring order to the chaos in her mind.
A test?
Siren frowns at Terran's irrational idea.
What kind of test is that?
She asks.
Blow up gods? And you are on our side? Come on.
Siren shakes her head at her friend.
No, I'm afraid the Council is serious about this.
Siren sighs while she leans back into the cushion.
But I don't know if I want to.
She murmurs and folds her arms defensively around her. In silence, they glance over the central skyscraper and high-rise buildings. The monotonous hum of the engine and the constant stream of raindrops against their car window calmed their worried minds. After a moment, Terran reaches for Siren's hand and presses it tightly.
Baby, I know I don't want to.
Terran decidedly responds. She is still perplexed by the Council's decision about Raylan, but she cannot let this stand.
We must contact the other sections.
She reasons and taps the middle console impatiently.
And I want to talk this over with the Council.
Terran's combative streak awakens. She will not act against her beliefs.
Uh-huh. You're damn right.
Siren cheers her on.
And I'll be right there with you.
Siren grins at her lover, glad that Terran wants to spring into action.
I'll contact the Dushama and the northern section to set up a secure line.
She offers expertly.
Good.
Terran nods. Then a different thought passes through her mind.
What about Raylan?
Terran is still not clear about Raylan's role in all of this. Siren twirls a strand of her blonde hair and replies, lost in thought.
What about him? I thought he is out of the picture, for now.
She stretches her back with a silent moan.
We'll play our part and bide our time, remember?
Siren snorts, not at all satisfied with their secretive mission against her lover.
That's the least we can do for the Council.
She adds and rotates her shoulders to relieve her aching muscles. Terran frowns as she contemplates her history with the ECO's Council.
Have you ever met a Council member?
She asks while brooding over her beginnings with the ECOs. Terran herself was recruited by a Council member here in the city. She recalls how the Crow stood before her one day. Do the right thing, he said. The ECOs offered Terran the purpose she had been missing all her life.
No, never met anyone from the Council.
Siren answers.
Not that I know of.
Strands of blonde hair fall around her neck as she shakes her head. Frowning at her friend, she asks cautiously,
What are you saying?
Nothing.
Terran responds, lost in thought.
I met one Council member. He recruited me. Good Crow.
Terran recalls how the Crow organized their successful attack on the Winslow Industrial Park 3 years ago. That put the Western Ecos section on the map as a force to be reckoned with.
He had to split after our Winslow Park mission.
She says, the furious retaliation by the ATC, in cooperation with the newly formed company Winslow Security, saw to it that members and associates alike had to go underground.
Never heard his voice again.
Terran adds gloomily. Siren senses her fears. She knows of Terran's belief that she endangers all around her.
Len, you seriously need to chill.
She states. With sudden inspiration, Siren sits upright and takes over the steering wheel.
Look, we'll have a lot of time on our hands. Before the sections can set up a secure line.
She argues as she switches lanes for the next off-ramp.
What do you say?
She asks playfully.
You? Me? Bolton Tower Malls? Uh-huh.
Siren nods at Terran with a vibrant smile, beckoning her away from her worries.
Yeah, you're right.
Terran chuckles.
Also, We better get some relaxed time before the dinner tonight.
Taryn dreads the upcoming dinner with Raylan and his old friends.
I just hope the desert worm fillets will make up for the awkward conversation.
She sighs in resignation.
Yeah, we should go.
Saren agrees.
Keep things normal, you know?
Saren still senses the tiny glimmer of hope in the back of her head that everything could go back to normal, just a normal triple planning to blow up industry polluters. Oh my. This desert worm dinner will be interesting.
Yeah, can't wait.